live. It is Let's Talk About Web3, episode 9. I'm here with my co-host, Ohnahji B. We got our friend Easy traveling back from NFT NYC, so I'm excited to get the recap on that next week. But we'll start off with what we're grateful for. What are you grateful for this week, Ohnahji B?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good to see you, Z. Man, I'm thankful that it's another little reset. It's July 2nd. Halftime coming back out the tunnel. I like those little cyclical resets. Those little especially for me, sometimes I need them. I just need them. Like, okay, on the calendar, it's a reset. Like, get going. Like, do some quick little inventory, how things going, different things like that. But then okay, it's game time. It's new. Like we can start fresh. So I'm super grateful. Like I don't know how my brain works. I love when there's like a new reset. I love when it's like a new timer starting and stuff like that.
Temporal landmark, if you will.
Yes. Hey, yeah. Would you say temporal landmark? Yes. All right, we talking today.
Yeah, one of my
Facts.
I guess this is a good thing to be grateful for. So thanks for giving it to me. One of the things I'm grateful for is getting back into the groove of finding flow states in different ways and kind of deep work at the same time, and tapping in with a couple of the resources that I've done, and from that resources where I learned about temporal landmarks, and not just waiting until 6 months through the year or the beginning of the year to start something, but actually having that concept of, every single day is a temporal landmark in and of its sense is just very ordinary. So we kind of forget about that. And then making your own, because you can actually have intraday temporal landmarks. So working on that in different ways. And it's really interesting. Trying to just learn more about the flow state, because it's all about learning more about myself. So super grateful for that, and excited to be here today. We had a phenomenal Wave Wars last night. It was actually round 1 of 3 rounds of our first song versus song battle. So it was Jango, and he was battling himself, and it was 8 of his picked songs from 4 different eras of his time, right? So the last 2 were the most recent, what he's about to be posting, and the first 2 were some of his OGs. So it was a lot of fun. The way we've set it up, because this is our first one, we don't know exactly how we're going to be doing this, but I kind of had this idea where we would have the 8 songs battle against each other. We'd come down to 4, and then from that 4, we come down to 2. We were planning to do that all last night. Took a while to get through the 4, so we planned to do the 2 now with the finale, and we were going to do a finale of a 24-hour battle that's just up and open for people to get onto and check out. So for us now, it's going to be a 2-hour space with that round 2, and then the 3-hour. The round 3 is going to be that right after we'll start it, and then we'll come back 24 hours later to finish it off. So I'm really excited about it. It'll be a whole mini Jango week for Wave Wars, and I think there's a lot of people learned a lot more about Jango in the space last night, which was awesome. So I'm excited to be able to take some of that and share it with other people. I mean, I learned a bunch of things, and it was really cool to have him here as well. So we're stoked to start pushing more things out. He's in the ZAO Bootcamp. We're in day 3 or 4, I guess now. But on one of the first days, we got him to use Thirdweb, put out a music NFT, and start to be able to do that process on his own. So I'm very excited for the future of where he brings it. And yeah, quarter 3, halftime, we're gonna rock it out. What are you excited for the second half of the year, right? Like what I see. For me, it was the first half of the year was a lot of those connections and stepping into a lot of different initial parts of projects, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now, the second half of the year, it's that, okay, now all the conferences are off. Everyone's back in their home, huddled up, grinding, and it's that second half of the year where those projects are made or broken. And as well, whether we go into whatever the economics of the greater crypto market is
right.
So I think that it'll just be a really good time to be able to lock in and make sure to not hear a lot of the noise that's out there, right? So
yeah, for sure. And it's always good to see just those markers and those different milestones and things like that. I feel like I've been seeing which is very bad, is like all the scams are ramping up, like through email, through messages, through DMs. I'm seeing those, like, I'm like, wait, what? And some of them are getting clever again. It's like, wait, I'm about to click. Wait, hold on. What is this? Like, it's like airdrop season and things like that. And just, just different market movement, right? And different, just all kind of different stuff that's happening. So just be on the lookout for different scams and different phishing schemes out there as those are ramping up. And those ramp up because people do see like the momentum is starting to shift in markets, right? So I just, but it's also a good thing to see, because that means there's more momentum coming overall. That means more teams are, not quote unquote coming out of the shadows, showing what they've been working on, showing what they've been building. So yeah, I'm seeing a lot of projects and different places that I love to spend my time in Web3. A lot of them, I'm seeing a lot of them shifting. They're taking a lot of risks, and they're putting in major drastic changes to their platforms and protocols and things. Some of it's a lot of jarring. It's jarring for me. It's like, dang, I loved how it was before, but it's like they're doing that to build on that momentum, to get more people involved, to get more eyes on what they're building. So it's hard for me, because it's like, dang, I get used to a tool, and then they switch it up, and to try to bring more people. It's like, it's that old school, like in music, when you love your underground favorites, and you find somebody early, then they kind of do a little mainstream dabbling here and there, and you're like, why? No, stay where I found you. But yeah, I think that's a fan thing. It's a fan dilemma, right, that we find ourselves in. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. I think it's the resistance to change in a sense, right? That's
Yes.
natural. And it's hard sometimes when it's our favorite things, right? I get that. Now, I think that's a great way to segue into, I guess, topic number 2, and some of the things that are changing out there. And talking a little bit about Rodeo. I don't know too much about it. I don't know if you want to share, and then we can kind of talk about one of those things where it's like, oh man, this change, like, putting yourself on a platform is now making you liable to whatever they decide in the future, right? So it's another big part of, like, we've had a website hosting company go down since we started our podcast in the last 10 weeks. We've had other platforms stop adding new users that were mainstreams in the on-chain music community. So understanding coming into the space and all the security side of it, like you said, is very important, and understanding that you got to be vigilant as these scams pop up. But then you also have the side of just like learning about it and about the tech, and just like understanding the long-term goal of decentralizing your data and being able to be uncensored, right? By building your own network on your own platform in whatever way, shape, or form in your own ecosystem. So it's super exciting. And yeah, no, I'm curious a little bit more about what's going on with Rodeo.
Yeah, for sure. So I think I'm not 100% sure when it happened. It had to be in the last couple of days or so. But they added on the main page, it's a social media network. It was kind of akin to like Instagram, so very visual. The posts were, in the square, or whatever aspect ratio, but it was mainly art focused and visually focused, right? Like an Instagram. So I go on there today, and I'm like, there's a new third column that I see. And the third column is actually the first column. So the first column is like posts. And I'm like, okay, this is different. So I click the post, and it's now like text thread post on what you have been saying on the community tabs, which they added like 2 weeks ago. But now it's front and center on your home page. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? So it's got the post, and also it's got your art pieces, or whatever, your content, right? So your NFTs, for lack of a better word. So it has your actual posts, your words, so like a Farcast, or a Twitter, or X, whatever, and then it has that inside of that. The second column right next to it, the middle column, is actually how it used to look. So it was just all of the art. And then your third column was your collection, the stuff that you collected. So instead of the grid, the whole UI being the 2 main categories, it's now 3. And that first one is like text, and I'm like, that's a huge major UI UX change. And I was like, whoa.
We spend a lot more time on the platform to get an understanding of now what the meta is with the new
Yeah,
UI.
yeah. Which to me, it's like I see the play, I see the vision, but it's a whole step away from like being the quote unquote
Instagram.
Web3 blockchain Instagram. Exactly. It's
And
like we're,
has it locked up. That's a little disheartening.
you said, say it again?
I said Zora has it locked up. Then I guess that's a little disheartening.
How you been feeling about Zora? I haven't,
I don't
you
like
know,
it at all, but it's gonna win. Like it's gonna win out 100% because like as much as I hate the concept of tokenizing everything, putting everything to a capital market isn't the worst idea because then just like garbage stays low usually. I mean, capital can always come in and fake it, but it's a lot easier to see things on chain. So while I don't like the what the platform has done in the past, while I don't really want to post a lot over there, like you said, it's the new meta, and like I definitely think there's a time and a place for that. However, saying that, I have also started launching my own NFTs on Thirdweb in the process of teaching Jango from some of my photos from my past. So the first photo was from 2016, and the second photo was from 2015. And now that I'm saying it again, I'm gonna have to post that third photo. But my goal and the reason I chose to do that on Thirdweb and like to really have the leverage of something like that is if I have some other rewards program somewhere, let's say I have a monthly subscription for $1 a month that people can join, that they automatically get airdropped every single one as I post them, then I can do that for essentially free because it's on base. The fees are really minimal. But anywhere else, any other platform, like quite literally anything, Thirdweb basically is just UI for smart contracts. So you're actually hosting it yourself. But anything else that has their own platform and their own, want to keep you as a consumer, will not have the ability to do that. It'll come at some cost. So being able to build things in-house and learning how to bring things in-house is huge. And that's like what we did with Wave Wars, was Hurricane, ended up trying to work with a couple developers and code a couple things with them, but it just was super unreliable. And people weren't as skilled as they initially said they were. So he just decided to do it himself, right? So like bringing things in-house, and for us at the ZAO, that's like always been the biggest thing. And the biggest like mission, because that's the ethos to me of true Web3 is like finding a way to get it so that no matter what happens, your data is still there safe and you have access to it. So yeah, no, it's really cool.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. It's a lot going on, but it's crazy. It's always crazy to me. It's like, we're talking about these different apps, different protocols, different chains, all that good stuff. Like, the majority of people have no idea, and we're over here like, sometimes stressing about it, which is crazy. But yeah, man, there was something I was gonna say. Oh, yes. Okay. So while we do have, some of the platforms that are kind of the front runners right now on the mobile side, so like, Rodeo, Zora, I did, I dabble a lot on Stay in Process. So in process from the homies, Tasha and CXY, Sweet Man. I always try to, give shine to where, the home team builders and the homies. I went on there. They're almost at, or I think at the time they weren't quite at 1,000 moments posted. That's what they call them, the moments. So their minting platform, they were almost at 1,000. I was like, that's a cool milestone. Like they hit that pretty quickly. It was like kind of slow motion from 100 to 200, 300. Like everybody was still, grinding in it. Sweet Man was still trying to, get the kinks out on the tech side. But yeah, they're zooming up close to 1,000. When I posted that, it was a couple of days ago. And then after that, I saw, them kind of pick up the momentum, start posting again. Might have been the algorithm, but then they said we reached over 1,000. So I don't know. I think that sometimes there's that network effect of like, especially when you're building stuff and you're building community, just having other people acknowledge that they still remember your thing as a thing or still building on your tool and shout it out to the rest of the world. that's enough of a push to be like, oh yeah, that's right. I am rocking some of the homies are still pushing my thing. So for anybody out there, like that's a huge like underrated tool is just supporting what your homies are building, no matter what. Like just, and even if, because we're all balancing our time and our energy and all that good stuff, but just taking the time to be like, oh yeah, I remember that the homie was building something cool. Go ask him about it, or go tweet about it, or go share it to somebody. Like just that, just putting that into the universe does wonders, man. It's crazy.
I like that. I like to say, like, my goal with everything and just like the people I meet in general with the way I engage online is I've always said this, like a lot of people say that you shouldn't be in business with people, with your friends, your previous friends. And I feel as a way that I wouldn't want to be in business with someone I couldn't consider my friend. And because of that, I see a lot of my business partners as people on the same team as me. So in this wider internet world, if I can engage with the algorithm in any way, shape, or form to support them, I think that automatically is like that goal of being on that wider team on the greater internet with that person to try and help them succeed, right? So I love what you're saying there. That's really cool that they hit 1,000, and no, I'm excited. I need to tap back in. I'm in it a couple, but that's not a bad idea. I should mint a couple of them over there too. So
yeah, there's some different things like just from like the homepage and like UX UI that I definitely like toss over to Latasha, toss over to Sweet Man. Because like sometimes it is a little bit harder, to navigate what's going on there. Like I'm trying to like find people's posts and what they're posting, different things like that. And it is a little different, but I think that's just all in what they're building. They're building something from the ground up to where they want it to be different from a bunch of the different places that are out there. So it's cool to see, when Rodeo's kind of like throwing the kitchen sink, right? And it's like, just bucking all the crypto BS and all that good stuff, right? To get mainstream in. Zora's doing their play to just coin everything and whatever, everything's a coin to get everybody in, to get that mainstream appeal. They're doing a different route to where they're keeping it like you can mint anything, you're in control of everything. We're calling it the moments. They're focused on the timeline aspect. I think that's really cool just to see how teams kind of navigate just the different ways of playing in this ecosystem. And I think it's cool, and it shows how like vast and how early we are into it, because you can take all these bunch of different avenues. You can, unfortunately to me, you can change, your route and your tactics in it, but it's a cool emerging tech space to be able to do that. So
yeah, 1,000,000%. I was talking to a couple of non-Web3 individuals who are professionals in their space. And one of the things I was mentioning was in his ask about a couple of the questions about our business, I was explaining that my goal ultimately with my team is to be as agile as possible, because as a team, if we can jump on something really quick and see it from cradle to like actually being an MVP and getting out there and getting eyes in front of it and seeing if it's a worthwhile project to pursue. If we can do that as fast as possible, I think that's the best potential for really creating something that has that bulldozer type mentality of just like being able to see something and churn out an idea that has a lot of collaborators on it with a lot of original content. So I'm stoked for how we rock it out. And I think that like concept of being super agile in this space is like 10 times more important, because news comes at you 10 times as fast as the traditional space, right?
Facts. Yeah, you triggered me. You reminded me. You were talking about, as companies are building, they're growing. Some of them aren't making it. They're sunsetting, like capital's running dry, or some people just, lack of a better word, they just give up. They're out of it. You know what I'm saying? They find a different, avenue. One of my favorite. This one hurt me. Z. One of my favorite apps, like hidden apps in Web3, Surreal. They announced that they're closing up shop too. And I was like, because I was in the DMs with the homie that does like the community building. And I was like, yo, what's going on after you know, like the landscape's changing of like base and Zora and all that good stuff. I was like, what's the play? And she was like, yeah, I'm sorry I had to tell you this, but we're closing it. We're sunsetting. I was like, no.
That's brutal.
I was like, crap, they're my favorite. They're my favorite. And I was like, the UI, the UX was perfect. You know, their ethos, their mission was perfect. It's like, dang, but
Well, so that's the thing about the space. At least there's a chance that people open source their code. Are they gonna
right.
open source some of their stuff? And that's
I don't know. I was gonna ask him because you know me. I asked the same thing to like my pop rank homies. I was like, well, you know, how much does it cost? Let me take that off your hands. So I might shoot that message over to them too, but they're a lot bigger than pop rank. So we'll see. That price tag might be might be up there. But yeah, man,
that's why you got built things in house.
Yeah.
Damn.
So I was like, dang, you guys are on it. But I mean, you know, it makes room, makes ways for the next, you know, iteration of companies, folks, whoever. But
yeah,
I was hurt on that when I was like, no, tell me you're lying.
I do feel like there is a little mini corporatization of it though, right? With like a lot of the blockchains. I mean, but I guess this probably was all happening before too. So like, it's not like it's anything new. It's just more kind of coming back into that bull run mentality. But like, it just feels like, I guess, like you said, the scams are out there, but then also like not just like the straight scams, but then just the general false actors and like toxic people. So it's like finding that, like I was even talking last week with someone about communities and like how important that is, how important growing that is in a time like right now more than anything. And being able to kind of, if this quote unquote dead internet theory happens, right, like having your own safe space on that internet where you know verified users are coming in and they're trustworthy is a huge boon. So like one of the biggest things we've been trying to attack is reputation and respect, and like how can you build that on chain. So everything that a lot of people are building are looking at that financial side, but I think a lot of that quote unquote on-chain music, Web3 culture is more on that social side. So I think there's a whole group of people in crypto that don't know anything about Web3 and like generally like the tech behind it. They just trade coins. It is an investment. And I think that group of people in and of itself could be a really big inflow of individuals, but then never mind onboarding people through music. And that's kind of why we're here and what we're trying to do.
And it's cool to see, you know, that whole ethos, that whole part of the cycle, it's going to return too, and it's going to be bigger than it was, you know, previously. Which is, you know, I'm excited to see. I'm always excited to see people kind of get, you know, kind of tired of the trading, the coin, the meme, and all that good stuff, and then be like, okay, what's the serious art? Who's really focused in? Who are the dope creators? Who's killing it? Who's been building in the space? That leads to the art. That leads to the music. That leads to, you know, everything else, the content and all that good stuff. So we're gonna see that shift, and I'm already seeing, you know, hints of that coming back. So yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. And, you know, Z Talent and the ZAO, we're gonna be ready for sure.
Oh yeah, I got a couple things cooking, and I'm excited to share and get your thoughts on, because there's just, so like you said, we're in the second half of the year. It's time to sit down and build and kind of grow and iterate on the things we've built. And my brain always works like a brainstorming kind of mentality where I'm always having these insanely crazy ideas that could or could not work. So sometimes it's its own challenge to like be able to write that down and be like, hey, this is a priority later, whether it's a think about it in a little bit and see if it's possible, or just like, you know, wait till next year, right? It might just be one of those things. So yeah, as we come across the end, I don't know if you have any final thoughts for us here on this lovely Wednesday. Yeah, I'm excited for this upcoming week. We'll be getting Easy back next week, hearing a little bit about NFT NYC, and then we have a guest speaker in a couple of weeks, which is super exciting. Yeah, how you feeling?
Okay. For sure. Good, man. You know, another thing that we were talking about and just hit me. We're talking about like these resets, right? What did you say in the beginning? The temporal what?
Temporal landmark.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look that up because I think, you know,
I
I align heavily
with
with that. Okay, for sure. But yeah, it's also, I like those milestones, those markers though, because it's a good debrief, right? It's good to see, okay, what happened in this last half or this last, whatever we're coming out of. And it's always good to be like, to go back and just appreciate how far we've come, and that's hard, especially in, emerging tech in the blockchain space, whatever, as creatives. It's hard for us to be like, oh yeah, this last time period, we did this, we cooked this up, and it's dope and it's growing. Especially, we're falling into that comparison culture trap where we're like, oh, we're not as far as A, B, and C. We're looking around and seeing other groups and different things like that. But I love those resets, and I love, just that's what halftime is, right? Basketball metaphors, we go in the tunnel, we talk about the half, right? And then we come out and we play stronger or whatever. So it's cool to have these landmarks, kind of for everybody. It kind of forces everybody, right, as a crew to be like, how did we do this past half? What were the wins? What were the losses? How can we improve? And I think that's we're going to see a lot of growth in the second half, all over the place in Web3 and our individual companies as a network, right? We're going to see a lot of growth going in the second half just because we have those, those temporal landmarks.
There you go. I love
yeah, bro.
Great way to end it. I'm stoked. We're going to have our next one again next week. I think Pods is getting a big upgrade, so I'm excited for that. Maybe it'll be easy to batch upload these like 5 episodes, so that'd be nice. If not, hopefully at least we can maybe copy the some of the content from before. But if not, my goal, as it has been the last 2 weeks, is to get more episodes up on Pods. But we just released last week's episode. So yeah, we'll get this one out in a timely manner and continue the YouTube trend and rock it out. And yeah, I'm just excited to get Easy back and hear a little bit about all of his fun NFT NYC adventures.
Heck yeah, for sure. Shout out to the chat. We got
we had a bunch of people
viewers in the building. Yeah. Shout out to we got Melody Miller in the building. Shout out to OG Ohnahji fam. Thank you for popping in. We got Cookies in the building. We got Toyoshi in the building. So heck yeah, it's good to see y'all. Thank you guys so much for always supporting and just rocking with us. Hopefully let us know too. Like if a lot of this conversation is going up over heads and things like that. That's one of the things I did want to talk to you, Z, too, is like, I'll do it real fast. So last week, let's talk about Web3. We talked about, kind of a screenshot from Farcaster about some verbiage and like changing from using some of our Web3 crazy acronyms and jargon and all the nonsense over to like regular human speak that someone's going to really understand. And after that, I was talking to one of my good friends, and we're like, yo, I really still have no idea what Bitcoin. I don't get it. And I was like looking at them like, wait, what you mean? Like, I really don't get it. And I was like, what part?
Like someone in crypto or like outside?
No, outside, like close family. And I was like, all right. So I was trying to go through it, and I was trying to, condense my pitch.
Yeah. The onboarding thing is always its own challenge. You always learn so much in between attempts. So it's like, it's its own challenge, and you always, like, especially as a technical person, I always overcomplicate things.
Right. And so with that, I was feeling myself overcomplicating it, and I was like, damn, this is not it. So of course, in my side time, I had a nice little chat with GPT, like, yo, I need help, like, and then it kind of led to, do I really know this stuff? As like an educator, like. Everything I'm saying,
best way of learning, right?
Exactly. So it was like, no, you're on the right track. Like, and I was like, cool. So that kind of solidified for me. And then also, whatever that next, history of blockchain comes, it'll look a whole lot different from when we delivered it. But
so we should do once a month workshops. Okay. I think that's what we should do. Whether it's the first, it could be a random one of the months because we're all busy for a bunch of the weeks other than one. But I think we should just do a mini workshop where the 3 of us present something.
Okay, that'd be dope.
The person in, whatever, just like we just do a little bit of preparation beforehand, and we present something, whether that is something like the history of blockchain or even condensing it a little bit to like popular blockchains and the pros and cons of them, just like as basic, right? So I think there's a lot of things we could do with that, and if we do one every 4 shows ish, I think that'd be like a perfect melding point of, chatting, but then also being able to leverage some of that chatting into actually educating.
Heck yeah. Let's lock it in. Build in public. That's what we do.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, that was a phenomenal episode 9. Excited to get Easy back, as I've now said 3 times, but we'll rock it out. Thanks, B, and thanks everyone for popping in.